And welcome to this episode of the Capitalized Life and Retirement Show. I'm your host, Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management, a retirement income source located in Clear Lake and Humboldt, Iowa, serving clients in northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. Well, how are you today? I hope you're doing well, taking a little bit of time for yourself. Let's start out today's program by just asking a very simple question. When I say the voice of reason, what does that elicit in your mind? What comes to mind when you hear that statement or that description, the voice of reason? Is it potentially a person that is calm? Is it a person that is acting logically versus emotionally? Is that a person that potentially might be in charge or know something more than you know? Today we're going to be discussing the voice of reason. The voice of reason is something that each and every single one of us have. We can be the voice of reason for a spouse. We can be the voice of reason for a child. We can be a voice of reason for our grandchildren. But when it comes to financial matters, let me ask you, who is your voice of reason? You know, back in the 80s, and unfortunately, I cannot find the title of this book, but I know back in the 80s, there was a book written by a psychologist that made an observation that you and I as human beings are more attached emotionally to our money than most every single other thing in our life. And it's hard to believe. I mean, honestly, we would definitely say, no, that's not true. Like I'm more emotionally attached to my spouse or to my kids. But when it comes to money, money is a part of every fabric of this society. Money is a part of your life. Money is something that you have to have. You cannot live without money. And despite the fact that we all know that there's, those stories of individuals that have pulled up roots and moved to the woods of Alaska, well, guess what? It took them money in order to get there. And they still need some degree of money in order to be able to carry out and maintain their lifestyle. But this is a financial show. We're dealing with retirement. We're dealing with how you're going to weather all of these storms, all of these ups and downs that are going on. And money is definitely a part of our psychology. Money is just something that's a part of our life, and we know it's a part of our life. But the first thing that I'd like to just kind of discuss with you is something called money scripts. Now, if this is new to you, I'm going to encourage you to go out and get a copy of my book, The Capitalized Retirement, because in this book, I mention how we can tell ourselves stories. We can have these stories in our mind. And those stories, though they are subconscious, they can influence our thinking. They can influence our behavior. I'll just give you one as a for instance. Money is evil. I'm certain you've heard that. I'm certain you may know a person who has specifically thought that same thing. And you look at how they behave when it comes to money compared to other individuals that do not have that script running in their mind. And those individuals are going to behave very differently when it comes to money. How about another one? The stock market is just too risky. I can take that even further. And I can say I've heard people say that the stock market is evil, that the stock market is a form of gambling. And there's really there's not much that you can say about that because, quite honestly, it is a gamble. It is risky, right? When you put money into investing in a stock or a fund of some sort, you are taking a gamble that you're going to end up getting your money back. And you don't know. You might be a winner. You might be a loser. You might end up just getting everything back that you invested. But we all know individuals that have a belief in their mind that the stock market is simply just too risky, or that it is a form of gambling, therefore it's evil. And if we look at how they invest their money, we know that they are going to be making very different decisions than average everyday individuals. How about another one? More money could solve all my problems. Now, certainly we have all known at least one individual that has had this script running around in their mind. If they simply just had more money, they would never have any more problems. And so as a result, that's the driving force behind their decisions. You see, all of these scripts and how we perceive things, from the stock market to who's president to the party that's in power to what's going on with the economy of the United States of America, all of these things have an influence on you and they have an influence on me. They influence us emotionally. They influence our decisions. But I want to go a little bit deeper. I want you to be thinking about those that you surround yourself with. You know, the Bible even says that bad company can create and corrupt good behavior. Well, when I think about all of the thousands of individuals that I've met and that I've helped over the course of my long tenure as a financial advisor and a fiduciary, I can say that this is not going away. It's not something that was new and is going to be new in the future. It's something that has been and something that always will be. And that's the fact that we all have well-meaning, well-intentioned friends. And you know, there's always that one friend that we might have that's a little bit more loud than the rest. One friend that's a little bit more opinionated or boisterous about how they feel and what they think we should be doing with our money. And the reality is this person could be, leaning to the left. This person could be leaning to the right. Maybe they say that they're Switzerland and they're somewhere in the middle and they're neutral. But the reality is that they want, undoubtedly, to see that you believe them. They want to see that you see things as they see things, and they're going to be very persistent until they feel like you're really getting what they're saying, and you see things the way that they see it, and you see the danger that they see. And ultimately, they want to see you take action based upon their opinion. The one challenge that I would say that happens to you and I when we have that one friend, or maybe you have multiple friends that way, is the fact that so many of them are very opinionated about investments. So many of them are opinionated about how you should invest and what you should invest in. And although they are your friend and they would never knowingly do you harm, the reality is, do they really know your entire financial situation? Do they really know? Are they a licensed advisor? Are they licensed to provide financial advice that is in your best interest? If you see where I'm starting to get to in the first part of our conversation today, you see, the reason why we have to be careful about what script we have running in our brain, how we think about money, how we perceive and view the world and what's going on in the world, the friends that we surround ourselves with, is because these things can influence us to make irrational, illogical, very potentially damaging decisions with regards to our money. And that's the one thing that a financial advisor is not to do. I've given this example before, but I think right now is a very opportune time to remind you of this. And those of you might bristle at this idea, but it's true nevertheless. When you drive your car, the distance from your windshield to the horizon, as far as you can see, is roughly about 20 miles. If you hire a financial advisor, I want you to think of that financial advisor, and this is the way it's supposed to be, and we'll be dealing with advisors here in just a moment, but that advisor is to be flying at 30,000 feet. And at that height, at that altitude, that advisor is to be able to look well beyond your horizon. That financial advisor is to be able to perceive into the future, even though I'm not saying the financial advisors have crystal balls, because you know that that's not true. But there are things in front of us that we have not yet come across, things within our future that could be somewhat damaging or devastating to us financially if we don't avoid them. And that's the reason that you work with a financial advisor. Your financial advisor is to be that voice of reason, that individual who is that calm within the storm, that individual that knows what they know. They have the experience of years or even decades behind them, and they have the proof and they have the numbers to be able to back up what they're telling you. Their job, as it were, because they can see so much further, is to help you make decisions today to hopefully down the road avoid making an even bigger mistake or a mistake that you will regret. I'll give you a for instance. Just recently I met with a gentleman who this gentleman is very emotionally charged right now. He recently lost his wife, and they had been married for 40 years. You can imagine the loss and the emptiness that this man is feeling. And during my review, you could sense that he just had a sense of loss. You could see that he just no longer cared. You could see where he no longer had any real desire for the future. And it was very sad, but it was very understandable because of the loss that he had just went through. And he was wanting to just throw caution to the wind and saying, screw it. I don't need a legacy for the kids. And, no one gets out alive. I'm just going to take this money and I'm just going to blow it on myself. And, que sera, sera. Now, if you were in my position, what would your response be? Would your response be to go ahead and let this individual do what he wants to do? Or is it potentially that you would be taking and providing a bit of caution? You would be that voice of reason to him to say, I understand what you're feeling right now. I can only imagine. But the reality is that we have to be prepared that we may live longer than what you expect. And let's face it, as much loss and grief as you're feeling right now, you cannot add to that the risk of losing and running out of money before you run out of life. Now, we're coming up on our first break. Sit tight because this is a heavy topic and we have more to follow. Sit tight. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the second half of the Capitalized Life and Retirement Show. I'm your host, Matthew Johnson, president and owner of Johnson Wealth and Income Management, a retirement income source located in Clear Lake and Humboldt, Iowa, serving clients in northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. If you're just joining us, welcome to today's program. Today, we're discussing a bit of a heavy topic. I've entitled today's program, The Voice of Reason. Today, there is absolutely zero shortage of things to worry about. There is no shortage of things to be thoughtful of and to be contemplative of with regards to the market, the economy, world trade, what's going on in even your personal retirement account balances. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things that we are concerned with, but we have zero control over. And we've been discussing, do you have that one person in your life, that one friend that's maybe providing you financial advice? They're maybe a little persistent, they're a little belligerent, they're a little opinionated, and they're telling you, well, I think you should do this, and I think you should do that. And they want to see you come over to their side, whatever side that might be. And they want to see you make decisions, but do they really have your best interest in mind? I'm sure that they're well-meaning, but do they know your full, entire financial scope and picture? Do they know what there is to know? Are they a financial advisor? Are they licensed? Are they able to provide you with the pros and the cons of what they're asking you to consider doing with your own money? Have they weighed the risks and the consequences? Under most circumstances, just like written in my book, The Capitalized Retirement, oftentimes they forget to discuss the pros and the cons. And in the same way that your best friend may be very, very well-meaning, unfortunately, they do not have the foresight to be able to see what might happen if you, in your unique set of circumstances, take their advice. But let's move on. Let's talk about something else. Let's challenge us to think about the news media outlet. Now, this is a big one because this is a radio show. Certainly, you would think that I have a radio show because I want to influence the listener. And I suppose that that's correct. The way I take this radio show is as an outlet to be able to educate people and make them more financially literate, or help them become more financially literate. Think of things in a different way. But you've got that favorite financial media news outlet. And by your accounts, they're fair. They're very unbiased. They're very, they seem to weigh both sides of the argument. And maybe that is the case. I don't know who you watch. I don't know who you listen to. But after all, I mean, how could they be steering individual viewers wrong? They have, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds or millions of people that view this program. How could they be providing misguided truths about financial things and money? Well, the thing that I would ask you to consider is, how do these news outlets make money? And the easy answer is through clicks and through viewership and through selling advertisements. When we look at all of the news that surrounds us and all of the opportunities for us to listen to, this commentator and this analyst over here and so on and so forth, do they have a dog in this hunt? And the answer is, you bet they do. Because without being able to get your viewership, they don't make money. And this is the reason why I believe more and more we see news headlines that are more drastic, they are more extreme, they are more attention-grabbing. And they have to say, today the Dow Jones plunges. Well, what does that mean? And then you look up the article and you see that the stock market is down 300 points. Is that really a plunge? Is that really a plunge? I think you get what I'm trying to relay to you. We have to be careful of the friends that are well-intentioned giving us financial advice. We have to be somewhat cautious about the news media outlets and the things that they push that they say are within our best interest for investing in. But let's deal with this one. How about the Rabbit Financial Advisor? Now, as we've explained in times past on this radio show, not all financial advisors are really financial advisors. Oftentimes, financial advisors can be simply salespeople that are here to sell something. It could be a particular stock. It could be a particular product. Stop me if you've heard some of these. Why, I agree with you. If you don't make this decision, it could financially devastate you if you don't put all of your money into this annuity contract or into this life insurance policy. Or how about this one? You'd be silly not to bet on this stock or on this company or this limited partnership. Or don't worry, it'll all come back. Or I love this one. This time it's going to be different. You'll see. Or how about this one? You need to take everything you own right now, sell it all, go to cash, and then you need to go out and buy gold. Gold is the only safe haven. Now, I want you to consider that. Just because you are licensed as a financial advisor does not mean that you're good at your job. Just because you have a designation that the average person has does not mean that your advice is sound. And for all of you, all of those of you that are listening, I want you to understand that if anything, today's episode is pro financial advisor. But I need you to listen to your own voice of reason. I need you to understand that during the most volatile times like we are going through right now, and trust me, today is not as volatile as it was from 2000 to 2003 during the tech bubble burst. Today is child's play compared to 2007, 8, and 9, where the stock market lost 60% plus. It's not that time. But it does feel scary. And especially for those of you that are closer to retirement than ever before, you've got more money than ever before, you're about to take that plunge and retire. And you're saying, listen, I can't afford to lose a bunch of money. You need to listen to that gut instinct. And then you need to find a financial advisor that you know you can trust. A financial Sherpa. The reason that I use the term Sherpa is because Sir Edmund Hillary did not summit Mount Everest by himself. He hired Sherpas. He hired the local natives that could breathe the thin air, that knew the trails, not only to get him all the way to the summit, but then to bring him back down, which was just as important. And if you've been feeling the pull of emotion one way or the other, you're scared, you're panicked, you don't know what to do, these are the times in which you need to have a conversation with your advisor the most. And even when you're meeting with your advisor, you need to exercise caution. You need to make certain that your gut is telling you that the advisor that you're meeting with is leading you down the correct path. Even though that advisor may be showing and sharing with you and encouraging you in a way that, you feel panicked right now, and he's saying, it's time to take a deep breath. It's not time to panic right now. It's time for you to stay the course. Now, I might argue the fact that if you're really close to retirement, continuing to risk all of your money in the stock market within your 401k or your IRA or your Roth may not be the best advice for you. I may give you an alternative to that conventional way of thinking. But you see, that's the reason why, if you have questions about your advisor, if you have questions about just how solid your plan is for being able to retire successfully, that it's important for you to get a second opinion. Just like you don't want to potentially hinge your entire retirement success upon the well-meaning friend that's telling you that you need to go and invest in pork bellies or cryptocurrency or whatever they happen to be into. In the same way that you're not going to just simply take the advice of the news media outlet that gets paid by the click and gets paid to grab your attention with very alarming headlines and follow what their advice is for you investing, even though they know nothing about you. You still need to exercise caution with your own financial advisor. And this is the reason why. Most advisors tend to be more product salesmen, as I said earlier. If you ask a banker, you ask a realtor, you ask a stockbroker what the very best investment will be, the banker is probably going to say the CD. The realtor is probably going to say buying real estate, and the stockbroker is probably going to tell you buying stocks. They're all experts in their own field, but because of their field, they tend to embrace that field and the product that they sell. And this is the reason why it's important for you to work with a fiduciary. Someone who potentially is going to have more of the area of expertise of income production. There's no question, if you're within a few years of retirement, you probably are feeling the effects of panic and everything that's going on today. And though you do think that, you know what, in the end, it may be worth it all. In the end, these things are going to shake out. In the end, it will be okay. That's fine. But then again, we have to ask, how far away is the end? Is the end 6 months from now? Is the end a year from now? What if the end was 4 years from now? How does that change the outlook, especially if you were to retire during and amidst all of this volatility? So the advisor is to be the voice of reason, to help you make decisions that are not emotional, but decisions that are logical. Decisions that are going to help you stay the course and to know that you're comfortable, to know that you're confident, to know that you're going to have all of the math to back up what you want in retirement. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you've been feeling the emotions as so many Americans are today, maybe you don't even have an advisor. I encourage you, begin interviewing advisors. Make an appointment, sit down, ask them questions, discover what their area of expertise is, and make certain that you have that voice of reason that's personally helping you, that knows your situation and isn't interested about the crowd. They're interested in you and in your personal success. I'm Matthew Johnson. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And remember, it's up to you to make today a great day.